Wicked Wardrobe, stylist Arthel speaking. Oh, hi Modi, how are you? Oh yeah, don't I know it. Trying to put different patterns together is a nightmare. Yeah, I'll gladly make an episode all about it for you. Anything for an old friend. Of course. You have a nice day too, all three of you. Okay, a pattern episode. Tough, but interesting for sure. Hey fashion faux pas, welcome to Wicked Wardrobe, a show where I, Arthel Hayes, graciously answer your fashion questions and give you the historical 411 on why what I told you works. I'll help you wear your clothes instead of them wearing you. And by the end of each episode, your closet and your favorite clothing racks will hopefully be a little less daunting. In today's episode, my caller made it clear that they had no idea how to wear patterns. Trying to acclimate into human society is rough if you feel ridiculous in your outfit. We'll address their concerns in just a moment in Wearable Wisdom. My caller, a dear friend of mine, has never known how to breathe around patterned clothing. They're terrified of looking or feeling silly. And trust me, in their line of work, it's bad to look silly. But hopefully, I'll be able to help them out today, and you all too. Patterns can be daunting, I know. Other people tell you all sorts of things regarding them. Paisley is out of style, horizontal stripes make you look wider, avoid mixing patterns, and whatever else they can drum up to keep you away from trying new things and fitting into a norm. So, in order to ditch what they think, I think it's best that we go over a few common fashion rules when it comes to patterns. I'll tell you which ones are actually worth anything and which ones you should disregard. Rule number 1, don't mix patterns. This is actually a completely ridiculous rule, and I doubt you should even call it a rule. You can absolutely mix patterns. You just have to be careful or else you can start creeping into hyper-maximalist territory, which isn't bad, but it can be rough on beginners. It's really frustrating when you're going to do patterns right, but then you completely confuse yourself and suddenly you look like a clown. No amount of sacrifices to the fashion gods will help you with the confidence to try new things if you're already discouraging yourself. So, if you're going to pattern mix as a beginner, it's best to stick to 2 patterns maximum. It's simply easier that way, and not just for your own sake. It's also because of rule number 2. When mixing patterns, keep the colors similar. If you're utilizing a particular color palette, it's easier to throw things together and have it still look really cool and effortless. For instance, if you're using 2 different plaid patterns, you can focus on the one color that's shared between the both of them. The great thing about a lot of plaid patterns is that they do the color matching for you. There's very few flannels or plaid anything that I've seen that don't already use a pleasing color palette. Or if you're using 2 different patterns, you can keep all the colors in the same color family or color scheme. Use your color theory knowledge from the first episode. This is how I can tell if you've been paying attention or not. Rule number 3, use balance. Make one print more obvious than the other, maybe by incorporating one with just a scarf, with a plain top, and pattern bottoms in a similar color scheme of the scarf. Or if you want to do something like multiple stripes, try different directions. Mixing horizontal and vertical or diagonal stripes is always an easy out for this. Patterns can complement each other really well and provide visual contrast with just a simple rotation. Rule number 4, when in doubt, go all out. Just go crazy and wear one pattern. Some humans will decry this rule and state the exact opposite, but this is my show, and I do and I say what I want. And what I say is that it looks totally dope and to go crazy and wear one pattern head to toe. It's a seamless look, and you don't have to think twice about how different pieces will look together. I will warn you though, some that are less open-minded will say that it looks like you're wearing pajamas. Don't listen to them. I'm sure they're the same humans that decry denim on denim. Rule number 5, use texture instead of more patterns. If you've got one piece in your closet that you absolutely love, but it's got an insanely loud pattern on it that you can't even begin to understand how to match, try some loud fabric to go with it. And no, I don't mean literally loud, like noisy parachute pants. I mean loud as in fluffy, textured, or simply very, very obvious that it's not a normal, smooth fabric. That's basically your 5 main rules for patterns. It's fairly short and sweet, but that's what makes it easier for you humans to digest. Gotta chew your food, you know? You don't want to choke. Keep in mind that these rules can absolutely be expanded upon as well, and will differ depending on what's trendy at the time. I tend to mix patterns and plains since I don't actually have that many pattern pieces in my closet. Now that we have a pretty quick and simple layout of the rules, how about we cover the history next? I'm really excited about this one. I'll see you in Who What Wear in just a moment. Welcome to Who What Wear, the segment where I give you the cultural 411 on fashion history. It's honestly hard to summarize a history of pattern types. Patterns are simply a part of fabric making. You could say that the earliest patterns were probably animal prints, since skins, hides, and other forms of leather were probably the first types of fabrics ever made, and animals naturally have patterns. As for patterns actually crafted by humans, it's a matter of cultural timing. I can't bear to leave out all my favorite patterns and just focus on a few, so let's do a pattern history speedrun. The oldest discovered printed pattern comes from about 5,000 years ago in Pakistan, and was a result of the traditional style of block printing called ajrak. Tartan, which is just plaid, dates all the way back to 1500 Scotland, but it actually has a pretty mysterious history. It actually became a prominent symbol of allegiance to Bonnie Prince Charlie, who led the Jacobites in a rebellion against England in 1745. The pattern was usually reserved for nobility or clans, and those who belonged to neither wore a different pattern called houndstooth. It's popular in women's office wear now, but it's also from Scotland. As I mentioned before, it was kind of the layman's tartan in the 1880s, but it eventually became associated with English royalty once King Edward VIII started wearing it in the 1930s. You know what else that guy popularized? The simple fair isle. As influential as royalty tended to be, the pattern still has a history before him. It's a result of a traditional knitting technique, and it features multiple colors. It's named, of course, after Fair Isle, one of the Shetland Islands. Toile de Jouy, renowned for its simplistic visual storytelling, became known around the 1770s because of a specific designer called Oberkampf. Technically, the original pattern made by Oberkampf Manufactory can be called Toile de Jouy, and only that one, but y'all weren't old enough to have seen the production, and I wasn't lucky enough to be in Paris while it was in production. I was in Scotland, obviously. Polka dots weren't really popular in Western history for a long time, since dots often reminded people of illnesses like smallpox in ye olden times. That wasn't that long ago. But it isn't to say that it wasn't a thing. In fact, a form of tie-dye from the 750s in China and Japan called shibori made a beautiful polka dot pattern. In 12th century Africa, mudcloth frequently featured polka dots. In America, polka dots being specifically described as polka dots popped up in 1857 in a women's lifestyle magazine. The modern camouflage pattern, it was first printed en masse for World War II. Camouflage existed far before then, but it actually became a fashion statement around that time, especially after the war. Paisley originated in Persia on Indian bandhani, which often had the design on it, and it was introduced to the US in the 1700s. Eventually watered down to bandana, it was popular with cowboys because the pattern didn't show a stain from their habit of spitting their tobacco into their cloth. Gross. Ditzy floral seems to have gained popularity in the 1960s, but it's just floral in lowercase, so it's hard to say when it truly originated. But floral print seems to have been popular in Asia in the 12th century, eventually getting to Europe in the later part of the medieval era. Ogee first crops up in the 1300s and 1400s in English Gothic architecture, but we see its rise in textiles in the 1500s in Persia, Turkey, and Italy. If I'm being honest, I prefer the architecture version of it over the textile version. The design isn't done justice on clothing. Fret, or Greek key, was found in both Peru and Greece on completely opposite sides of the world, but it's named after Greece because it was commonly found in pottery and architecture. Now, it's probably most commonly associated with Versace in the fashion world. Okay, that was quick. At least for me it was. Now that you have a history of some of my favorite patterns under your belt, how about I drag you along and show you how to work a pattern? Join me in Workin Wardrobe up next. Welcome to Workin Wardrobe. In here, I will utilize all that I've taught you today to make an outfit that follows classic pattern rules and one that breaks the rules. Let's start off with a basic polka dot dress. Now, you could honestly stop right there, but I'm going to layer a white turtleneck underneath it. Today's outfit is going to be pretty simple clothing-wise. The pattern is going to be the loudest thing in this outfit. Black shoes and silver accessories will beautifully complement the look we've created. Here's a close-up of the accessories. And ta-da! A simple outfit that lets the pattern speak for itself. Now, let's break the rules. Patterns everywhere, all the time, starting with a houndstooth skirt. I prefer reusing pieces, so let's use the polka dot dress as a top, but also as ruffles for the hem of the skirt. Add a striped blazer on top for yet another pattern. I'll wear black boots, and I use the belt as a necktie of sorts. Here's a close-up on the accessories. Nothing crazy, just the same silver accessories. You know, this may be one of my favorite outfits I've ever made. Thank you so much for joining me today in the Workin Wardrobe. I hope you learned something about patterns, but if you didn't, I'll leave you with this. Patterns are way too fun to be scared of. Try new things and figure out what vibes with you. The purpose of fashion is to wear something that you like, not what other humans like. So do what you will, and don't forget to stay wicked.